Hello, this is a video introducing myself. Even though I've been here making videos on YouTube for a very long time, so some of you may be aware of some of these details already, but I'm also somebody that really enjoys watching Booktube, and sometimes I become aware that I've been watching certain Booktubers for a really long time, but I actually know very little about them and their lives in general, so I really enjoy it when they make video introductions, giving a bit more context and understanding of their lives. Rather than just talking about the particular books that they're reading. And sometimes I get questions in the comments saying, who are you? Where do you come from? Are you American? Are you British? Are you Swedish? And so periodically I like to make videos like this, just introducing myself and talking about general information and my reading tastes and my background and all of that kind of stuff. And just recently I came across this Booktube tag by Jessica called the Booktube bio tag, and I thought there was a good series of questions that are kind of introduction in this way. So I thought I'd go through and answer all of these questions. I'll link her original video in the description below and also put the comments in the description. So if you want to do this tag yourself and answer these questions, I'd be really interested in hearing your answers. Or if you're a viewer and you want to answer some of these questions and let me know a bit more about you yourself, rather than just commenting about the books. I really love hearing about viewers' lives as well. So the first question is, who are you? Share a bit about yourself as much as you feel comfortable in doing so. So, hello, my name is Eric, and in my channel name, I use my full name, Eric Carl Anderson, because Eric and Anderson are both quite common names, so I use my middle name as well, and it's Eric with a C, Carl with a K, Liza with a Z. I grew up in the state of Maine, vacation land, the Pine Tree State, Stephen King country, although now it's also Elizabeth Strout country, which is in New England, but I first came here to London in Old England when I was at university, and I came here as a kind of study abroad type thing, and I just completely fell in love with the country and the culture and its people. And with one person in particular, I met my husband while I was here, who I'm still with and feel very lucky to be with. And so I've lived here my entire adult life, and now at this point I've been living here in England longer than I was alive and growing up in America. So I think that makes me more than 50% British now, although no British people would mistake me for a natural-born British person. I studied literature and creative writing when I was at university, and I did a master's degree in studies in fiction, but I realized at that point that I was done with academic life. I enjoyed in some ways and got a lot out of my master's degree, but I really was just done with academia at that point, and realized that the kind of way that literature is talked about in academia, it just didn't really suit the way that I want to talk about books. In terms of work, I've had a lot of odd jobs in my life. I once spent a summer working as a performer in a haunted mansion, not at Disney World, but at another theme park, and actually that haunted mansion, it became so old and dangerous that it was donated to the local fire department, and they used it as a test to set it on fire and put it out, so it doesn't actually exist anymore. I also used to be a massage therapist, and I worked as an actor for a very short amount of time. I once acted in a production of Ionesco's play The Bald Soprano that was performed in an art gallery, during which I wore a clown costume. But now I have a full-time job job in marketing, primarily affiliate marketing in an industry that has nothing to do with books. So I have nothing formal to do with the publishing industry. And sometimes people are surprised learning that I also have a full-time job as well as doing all of this bookish stuff online. But really, I'm just so passionate about reading and then wanting to discuss what I'm reading that I really dedicate myself to this. And I work really hard because London is a very expensive place to live. And so, yeah, I work really hard to earn money and support myself. I'm not independently wealthy and I don't like earn all that much at my job. So I try to supplement my income in other ways. But I just love books so much. So I couldn't imagine not reading books and talking about books as much as I do. What are some other odd facts about me? I used to be really into baking, and for a while I entered cupcake competitions here in London. I never won. I never won one though. That makes me sound very wholesome as well. A slightly weird thing is I'm kind of obsessed with disaster movies. I love watching disaster movies. The Poseidon Adventure, the original Poseidon Adventure, Towering Inferno, 2012, and probably one of my favorite disaster movies of all time is Airport 77, when they crash into the ocean and they need to find a way to get back up to the surface. It has a part in it with a very old Jimmy Stewart, although he doesn't crash on the plane, don't worry. But in general, I enjoy watching a lot of films. I spend a lot of time going to the cinema with my husband because he's obsessed with movies, and so we watch a lot of films. My favorite actress of all time is the great Sandy Dennis, who acted in films like Up the Down Staircase and The Out-of-Towners and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, that great play and great movie. And I've always been a big reader. I've always loved books. My father likes to tell this adorable story about when I was young and my first day of school. I went to school so excited, but I came home crying. And when my parents asked me what was wrong, I responded, I was in school for an entire day and I still haven't learned how to read. So I was very eager to get to the books. Question 2, how long have you been on Booktube? And I've been on Booktube for 9 years. I can't really believe that it's been that long and that there is this now huge back catalog of me recording my reading journey throughout all of that time. And of course, when I first started making videos, I was very awkward and I said even more than I do so now. I still say a lot, and I get comments sometimes of people saying, stop saying so much, but it's just like part of the way that I speak, and I can't really do anything about that. I like to think I'm maybe a bit more slick now in making my videos, but yeah, so hopefully I've moved on and my videos have improved somewhat over time, but I've also had a book blog, a written book blog that I've been keeping for 11 and a half years now, I think, called Lonesome Reader, and so that's at lonesomereader.com, and I still maintain that. I still post on that, not as much as I used to. I concentrate a lot more on making videos now just because I enjoy this process and the engagement that I get here much more than doing written reviews and posts, but I still do update that every once in a while. I do look at book content sometimes on Instagram, but I don't consider myself like a proper bookstagrammer. If you want to know a little secret, what I primarily look at on Instagram is videos of wombats. I have this weird like wombat obsession ever since I watched a documentary about wombats. I just love looking at videos of wombats. They are so adorable and wonderful, and I know wombats are wild animals. They are not pets. I've never been to Australia. I'd like to go one day to see a wombat in person, but I definitely know that they are not pets. I was really outraged by that news story recently about an influencer that went to Australia and grabbed a wombat Joey and showed it to the camera, even though the mother was running distressed behind that. I thought that was atrocious, and I was furious about that. Protect the wombats. I've also been running a book club on Patreon for a year and a half, and I really love doing that. It kind of, in a way, it's like revived my love for doing all of this book stuff online. We read a book together a month and have really interesting and in-depth discussions about it. The members of the book club are really lovely. I'm so engaged. I'm so thoughtful, really add to my reading experience. And I absolutely love having these interesting chats and discussions about books in a much more intimate way on this book club. So if you're not a member and if you're interested in joining, I'll put a link to that in the description below if you want to have a look at it. This month we're actually reading 2 books together because I post a poll every month in which we vote on what we're going to read for the next month, and we had our very first tie on what books we were going to read together. So yes, we're reading 2 books together this month in March. Question 3, what kinds of books do you love to read, and has Booktube had an effect on what you read? Well, I primarily like to read new literary fiction, prize-nominated books, and great classics. I especially love family sagas, international literature, queer literature, weird fiction, some fiction that shades into the slightly philosophical. Do I think that Booktube has had an effect on what I read? Not really so much on the kinds of books I read. These are still the sorts of books that I've always read since university days and throughout my entire adult life, although I think it's really like expanded the range of books I read and the amount of authors and different book prizes that I'm aware of, and it's even fueled my desire to read even more, because the more people I see people discussing books, the more I want to read those books myself and see what I think about them. Question 4, what do you enjoy about making Booktube videos? I enjoy the engagement with other readers. I enjoy getting book recommendations, having discussions, recommending books that I have loved reading. It's my proudest moment when I get a comment from someone saying, I read this book that you recommended, and now it's one of my favorite books of all time. I love sharing books that have meant so much to me personally, and then having conversations with other readers who have read that same book and connected with that book in a different way, but an equally powerful way. I think that is so beautiful. I enjoy the sense of community that comes with this, a reader's community where we may have very different opinions about the same books that we read, but we're able to discuss them and see other points of view and different ways of looking at books than if we had just been reading them all on our own. I used to be a very lonely guy that would just read books on my own and then scribble in notebooks about what I thought about them, just talking to myself. And in a way, I still am a lonely guy that is still just talking to myself about books, although now I'm talking to a camera, but also connecting with lots of other readers all around the world. I think that's an amazing thing, even though I'm still just speaking to myself. I'm a fairly introverted person in general. I find social situations like very awkward. Just the other evening, I was invited to a private book event, and I hadn't met personally anyone at this book event, and so I spent the entire evening just standing on my own, having multiple glasses of wine and looking around with a hopeful smile, but there were just sort of small groups of people talking to each other, and so I didn't get to speak to anyone for the entire evening, and I wasn't bold enough to try to go and infiltrate any of these groups to talk to people. So I just had a couple nice glasses of wine with other book people around me, and then I went home. Question 5. What do you not enjoy about making booktube videos? I don't enjoy all of the challenges that come around filming. Living in a city, it's quite difficult to find a quiet place to film and just sort of talk on my own. Here in my apartment in London, there is no part of this apartment which doesn't have noise infiltrating from the city. So no matter what room I'm in, there might be traffic noise from the street outside. There's a hospital not too far away from me, so there's frequently sirens that go by, and there's a window here in my library, and I can sometimes hear those sirens coming through. Just as I've been filming this video, I've had to pause sometimes because there's been loud sirens going past, there are planes going overhead, and on the other side of this wall of books, there's my neighbor's apartment and her kitchen, and she's absolutely lovely, but I can sometimes hear her clattering around in the kitchen when I'm making videos like this and have to stop and film another time. Something I don't enjoy about BookTube as well are rude comments, which I don't get all that much, although I get more than I'd ideally like to, and I assume most of these comments are from people who haven't actually watched my videos before. They might have just been randomly served up one of my videos and then responded negatively to it, and so leave a really rude comment, which isn't responding to any of my thoughts about books or anything that I've said in the video, but are responding to my appearance or my voice or my way of speaking. That will sometimes they'll just say, I don't like this guy, as if I'm not somebody that will be reading that comment and be like, oh, okay, well, you don't like me. Well, why are you watching my videos? Just shut it down and go watch something else. Question 6. What video on your channel are you most proud of? And this is more a video that I just have a lot of affection for because it really captured a particular moment of time in a particular place when I made a video about the book Square Haunting, which is here behind me on the shelves, and I made this in the year 2021 when the pandemic was still going on, and it was an unusually snowy time in London, and so I went out into the city to Mecklenburg Square, which is the area of London that's focused on in this book, to discuss a number of different female writers that lived in this square at different times, and it felt like I was kind of haunting the city myself by going to this location, but also, just because it captured this snowy atmosphere and the city in the time during lockdown, it just feels like this kind of time capsule that every once in a while I'll go back and look at, just to experience that moment in time again, which hopefully will never happen again. I mean, it would be nice to get snow again at some point, but not too much snow, because in England, they really don't know how to handle snow. The city basically shuts down when there is just a flake of snow. It's very different from my experience growing up in Maine. But also, I have to say, I'm probably most proud or also have a lot of affection for the interviews I've done with Joyce Carol Oates on my channel, who is my favorite author of all time. So the fact that I've interviewed her multiple times on my channel just feels amazing to me, and I feel incredibly privileged and lucky to have had really affectionate discussions with her, and to hear all of her thoughts about the books that she's written and read, and literature and life in general. Question 7. Is there anything you wish was different about BookTube? I wish there were more readers on BookTube, both watching BookTube videos and making more content. I think the more creators, the better. I wish BookTube was more of a thing than TikTok. It's been around for a lot longer than TikTok has even existed, but and it does slightly annoy me that Book Talk has become such a big thing. And when popular media are talking about like book stuff online, they'll inevitably refer to Book Talk, that there are Book Talk tables in different bookshops instead of Booktube tables. I was once invited to on a program on the BBC to talk about Book Talk, even though I don't like it all that much and don't feel like an expert at all in Book Talk. I've made a few videos on TikTok, but I just really don't like the format and the short format of that. I just really enjoy longer format content. Recently, I met up with an old friend that I haven't seen or talked to in a really long time. And so I was telling him about how I make book content on YouTube. And he was like, oh, are you a book talker? And I was like, no, I'm not really a book talker. And he's like, oh, really? But Book Talk is a really massive thing. Why aren't you on Book Talk? Question 8. Name 3 books that you have reviewed on your channel that you feel represent you as a reader. So I just went around my shelves to pick up these 3 books. So there's The Waves by Virginia Woolf, which I reread with my online book club last year, and I made a video talking about it where I just sat down and talked about this book for ages and ages because I just have so much to say about this book. I've read it countless times in my life. It's my favorite book of all time, and I just love it, and I think it's incredible the way that this book seems to change as I grow and get older. So I relate to the characters in different ways as I reread it over time. There's also Soviet Milk by Nora Extena, which I read this book and was so excited to read it as a piece of Latvian literature because I have Latvian heritage. And so I made a video discussing this book while also demonstrating my recipe for pigs or bacon and onion rolls that my little old Latvian auntie taught me. And because of that video, I was invited by the Latvian cultural group to come to Latvia itself. And so I got to go to Latvia because being on Booktube and experience that country for the very first time. And I made a whole video about that journey as well. And then the third book I would say is My Friends, which was one of my favorite books that I read last year, and that just I connected to personally so much, as well as showing me a life and relationships that are very different from my own, about experiences that are very different from my own, but that all centers around the city of London. And so then going out into the city and seeing some of these locations that are talked about in the novel. I love this book so much. Question 9, name 3 booktubers who inspire you. This is an absolutely lovely question. And there is Bob the Booker, who is somebody that I know in real life and meet up with frequently, and who's such a lovely guy. I'm a dedicated book fan and someone that reads more than I do. So I'm really inspired by that, but also inspired by his videos. I've gotten useful tips from watching his videos, and that when he's talking about a book that includes some spoilers, he'll be really clear about designating, I'm going to talk about the book in general, and then at this point I'm going to talk about these spoilers, so if you haven't read it yet. And that's just a very practical thing that I never thought to include in my videos before, and sometimes I've included it, and I find that really helpful. But our literary tastes just really align, and I'm just really inspired by the intelligent comments that he makes about what he reads. There's also Roz from Scally Dandelion about the books, who is an equally lovely person, reads a lot of similar books to what I do, but sometimes have very different opinions about those books. But she's so intelligent in how she critiques and talks about books, and in a very personable way, and gives a lot of interesting background information about the author and the book and the context of what's being discussed in the book, that I find that really inspiring as well. And there is Sean from Travel Through Stories, who again speaks about literature in a very intelligent way. He is so insightful about the books he talks about, but also in a very personable way. And he really goes deep into analyzing literature in a way way that I just really appreciate. I mean, he teaches literature himself, so it's not surprising. And watching him, I feel like I'm back at university in a literature course, but with a really lovely professor that I just learn so much from. He doesn't make as many videos as he did in the past. I think he's just very busy in his life and with his family life, so that's totally understandable. And it's something that's slightly melancholy about being on Booktube for so long, that a lot of the Booktubers I watched when I first started making videos don't make content anymore, and you know, that's our lives come first, and that should be the thing that takes the most priority. But I do miss some of the Booktubers that don't make content anymore. And finally, there is question 10. Share the love. Name 3 Booktubers who you think deserve more hype. And first there is Gretchen from her channel Made You Book, which I just love the title of her channel, but also speaks about literature in such an interesting way, reads a lot of the same books that I do, follows a lot of the same book prizes that I do, and I love how comprehensive she is in the prizes she covers and the books that she talks about them in a way that's both personal to her, but is also really insightful. There is John and Sierra from the channel And They Were Readers, who are 2 friends in America that are such enthusiastic readers, but also just their banter with each other is such a delight to listen to. I really adore watching their videos. And there is Alex, the Disco King, who lives down under in Australia and frequently makes videos about prize-nominated books and is very critical of those books sometimes, does not hold back on his criticism in an absolutely hilarious way, and I enjoy watching his videos so much. I'm someone that tends to be a lot more positive about what I read, and that's just naturally how I respond to books. I'm not doing that because I feel like I need to be positive. I'll say something critical when I feel critical about a book, but I just tend to be more positive. And so I really enjoy seeing the opposite side of the coin of someone who is extremely critical about what he reads and interrogates it in a way which often I think is quite fair, even though I might disagree with his opinions. I enjoy watching that so much. And Alex, if you have any pictures of wombats that you've seen, please send them along to me. But I just really enjoy watching his videos, so I'll put links to all those Booktubers down in the description below. But I'll also include all of the questions from the Booktuber bio tag. So thank you for watching me talk about myself for a while. I hope you found this interesting to know a bit more details. If you want to ask me anything else in the comments below, I'll do my best to answer it if it's something I feel comfortable in answering. But I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.